Thank you, Michael. I probably know half the people in the room, so for those of you who don't know me, I run a specialist media consultancy in London. We are big fans of addressable TV. We're big champions of addressable TV. And I say that up front because you'll see why in a minute. What I'm going to just feedback over the next 10 minutes is the outcome of a project we did with ISBAR, which is a trade body in the UK representing the advertisers. So this is the money. These are big advertising clients. Members of ISBAR include Unilever, Procter & Gamble, Heinz. So the money that feeds into this. And they were very concerned about the way their members viewed addressable TV. They were concerned that they didn't know enough about it, and there were some concerns about what they actually knew, whether it was the right stuff. And so we went out and actually we ended up doing 25 sessions with advertisers around the country. We started off thinking these were going to be research sessions, but actually what you'll see is they turned into whiteboard workshops because of the level of knowledge. And so this is a kind of a quick summary of what we found the advertisers know about and think about addressable TV. And we can really kind of summarize it into two themes: distrust and confusion. To deal with those just individually, distrust is a serious issue for us as an industry. What we saw when we spoke to advertisers about addressable TV is that some of the backwash of the problems in web advertising in general, social media advertising, UGC advertising, some of that backwash is being brought into the perceptions of addressable TV. Sometimes unfairly, sometimes because people are seeing the same names crop up in terms of suppliers and tech. And we have to be aware that is coming into TV. As an industry, television has always prided itself on its brand safety. We are a safe and secure industry, and there was a sense that we are being affected by some of the bad things that are happening over in the web. However, there was a massive slice of the distrust issue that comes from us, things we have done as an industry. It's things like announcing the launch of products that don't exist. And it happens, and there's been some big occasions in the last 2 years where stuff has been announced that you scrape the surface of it and it really isn't there. Or things are announced and launched and mispositioned. They're told that something is one thing when it's really not, it's another. Or it doesn't really add up to the promise that's being made at the headline. So we have to be very careful in addressable TV, not just not to overpromise, but to be very specific about our promises. And the advertiser was saying, we no longer trust some of the announcements we're hearing in the industry about these things. So that was a massive issue. But the more important one for us was actually just the confusion. I think we can all accept that the landscape that is arriving is both complex and nuanced, both in the products that we're bringing to market, the use of data, the way we're treating audiences and users in this new world. And one of the things the advertisers were saying to us is that we as an industry are not helping them understand this stuff. Now, some of this, and for those of you who'll know me, you'll know that I have a bugbear about terminology. A huge part of it is because of the language that we as an industry are using. The inconsistent language, the vague language. You know, I have a personal horror of the TV versus digital debate. I have to say I was personally saddened over the last 2 days to hear very senior agency people up on stage talking about TV and digital. That phrase should be expunged from our industry in general, but to use the phrase TV and digital at an addressable TV conference is incompetence. And I'm sorry, if I was an agency client, and one of my senior people from my agency was on stage at a conference like this and used the phrase TV and digital, I would put all the money. I'd go somewhere else, because clearly that person doesn't understand the complexity and the nuance of what we're all bringing to market. So we have to be very clear that not only has our language and terminology got to be correct, but we have to get past some of these old buzzwords and old phrases that we use to make ourselves look clever on stage over the last 10 years. Because actually the new world is complicated and it is full of nuance and details the clients need to understand. So we went round and had 25 of these workshops, and I just kind of want to talk through what the issues were. One of the big things that came back to us was that clients are still surprised that we're struggling to define television. There's been some great podcasts from the ASI and various people over the last few days. We are struggling to define television. So when we spoke to them, we said, let's start off with the core definition of television. It's broadcast linear shows of TV. What they were saying to us is half the time they hear an addressable TV pitch. When they scrape the surface, that's not in there. And actually, they want to know. Their starting point for when they think about telly is old-fashioned telly. And so if we're not addressing that up front and being clear about when something actually doesn't include linear telly, they feel they're being deceived. They're beginning to understand the nuances between IP linear delivered television and broadcast, but they want their agencies and their tech partners to be able to discuss this and work with them to understand it. And the same, the other formats, we kind of listed them all out on the whiteboards. And our definition of TV, depending whether we're talking about advertising or television, sometimes it does or doesn't include subscription on demand and also online video. So they were saying to us, if we can whiteboard eventually what we think all the components are, why can't our agencies talk to us in this level of detail and explain the nuances and differences between these products when they're talking about addressable TV? Of course, none of that has got any devices on it. The other thing they were saying is we're not hearing enough of a detailed conversation about the differences in devices. We're just hearing addressable TV, but the advertisers are saying we are very conscious that there's a number of different contexts in which our advertising is seen. The whole TV versus digital thing is so absurd because what they were saying was, in general, linear broadcast telly onto a shared screen is delivered into an audience context. We know that there is kind of TAM level targeting into audiences at this level, but we do understand that addressable brings new interesting tools, new ways of getting more detail. But what they were saying to us is the advertisers believe that addressable is a subset of the targeting world, but they're very conscious that there's a certain level of targeting you can achieve on a shared screen, whether it's postcode or geography, whatever it may be, which isn't the same that they're hearing talked about when people and suppliers are coming from the mobile industry or from the web industries. And they want to understand the relationship between addressable and things like TAM. And they're also concerned that the user device world is not being articulated clearly. It seems people are talking about you can see I'm very studiously trying to avoid the word digital here. There's kind of user devices, phones, addressable TV to mobiles, and there's mainstream TV. But they're saying, no, hang on. There's more to it than that because we know that user devices which are attached to a platform's piece of software, the addressable TV experience is very different to the addressable TV experience available via an app owned by a broadcaster. The amount of data is different, we're hearing that. The ability to target is very different, but we're not hearing this story from the industry. So the clients are saying, we know the outcome is different, but the way this thing is being sold to us doesn't reflect that. They also told us, they said, don't forget, digital out of home is an addressable TV vehicle at times. And they talked about the crowd context. That, with digital out of home, there's a crowd context for addressable TV where we target a time of day or the weather or various things, which is different to targeting in an audience in a home. But they were conscious it was part of the addressable story. And what they want to hear from agencies is the nuances and the differences between those things articulated in how we bring the product to market. They're hearing too many voices. If you look around the room, what they were saying is we're hearing an addressable TV story from the TV platforms, from the broadcasters, from our agencies. We're hearing it from ad tech companies, from video publishers, and from social media providers. We don't know how it all fits together. We don't know which of these stories are conflicting. We're hearing that bits of the value chain have got an addressable TV proposition, but we don't understand why and how it fits together. So we must be very clear when we're speaking to the money to tell the story of how all this stuff fits through the value chain, because all they're hearing is multiple conflicting and overlapping pitches from different parts of the value chain, trying to pitch them an addressable TV solution. And we need to go back and put it into the broader context that the advertisers understand. And then finally, I've heard too many advertisers tell us their agencies don't like to get involved in the details. Yeah, agencies, we don't like to get too involved in the pipes and the details. And actually what advertisers are saying to us is, This world is complicated. We expect our professional advisors to be able to explain it to us, explain the details, explain the pipes, the bells and whistles. It is no good for agencies to step away from the details because it is complex and nuanced. Through these workshops, we heard advertisers talk to us about not understanding the difference, and I'm sorry, this is a UK example, between Sky AdSmart and addressable TV onto a connected screen. Huge, so an example would be what David Cutts is doing with Synapse up on the first floor. If I've got addressable advertising onto a connected screen and I've got a Skybox plugged into it, do they clash? Are they the same? I don't know. And I know the answer, but they're not getting it from their agencies. We need agencies who can pick apart this diagram and show to clients where their ads flow through the system, where they use both, where one works, where one doesn't work, and add the apps into this thing. We need agencies and sales houses to be able to explain to the clients and the money how this diagram fits together and where their money flows through it. And if we can't explain it, we're going to have trouble selling it. Because the biggest message we heard all the way through is that. Why would we give our money to people who we don't even believe understand their own product? And that's the key message we have to take. We have to let the market know that we understand it, we understand the nuances, and we can educate the money about why they should be using addressable TV. And that's all I had to say.